Conditionals investigate. At the conclusion of this, you'll be able to identify common programming patterns using Boolean expressions and conditional statements. You will be able to explain the purpose of those programming patterns with Boolean expressions and conditional statements, both in terms of how they work and what they accomplish. You will be able to modify apps that make use of common programming patterns with Boolean expressions and conditional statements to adjust their functionality. A water park will let a visitor on a ride if they are 48 or more inches tall, or they are 14 years old or older. Make a flowchart for this decision. Make sure to use comparison operators and logical operators when you write your Boolean expression. Pause the video and take about 2-3 minutes to sketch out your flowchart. Does your flowchart look something like this? It should. Height, age. Those are your variables. You're going to check to see if the height is greater than or equal to 48 or age greater than or equal to 14. True, you can ride. False, you cannot ride. Remember that an or means only one of those must be true. Now, in everyday conversation, it is common to switch between using the words when and if. Here's some examples of what this looks like. When the user clicks the button, if the user clicks the button. When the user has more than 100 points, if the user has more than 100 points. Today, we want to be careful about how we use these words. To make things simple, we're going to use the following rules. When means there's an on event to respond to user input. The app does something when the user clicks. If means there is a conditional statement within the code that decides what pieces of code to run, and the app does something if a Boolean expression is true. Now, we're going to start with the activities, and you're going to be watching several videos. These videos can be found on either the Canvas page in Unit 4, Lesson 6, or in code.org, Unit 4, Lesson 6. Regardless, you must log in to Unit 4, Lesson 6. So if you haven't done that at this time, pause the video, log into Unit 4, Lesson 6. And you can either watch the video there or do it from Canvas. This is the first one that you should click on. Now that you've watched that video and you're back, we're going to do Lemon Squeeze Part 1. You need to go to Unit 4, Lesson 6, and I'll even show, and you want to go to Activity 3, okay, or Activity to Level 3. Yes, Level 3. And what you're going to do is play the game at least once. Then you're going to focus on each section of code, lines 1 through 13, 16 through 30, 33 through 53. You want to read the code in each section carefully. Make sure that you understand how each line works and what the code does in general as a bulk. I'm going to send you off into groups, so this way you can discuss with your group what each section does if you're not sure. You can call out any lines of code that you thought were interesting or confusing, and ask some good questions about how each section works. For example, I don't understand this, or I don't understand this line, or what does this command do? Could this section have been written another way? Now, if you're watching this asynchronously, you'll discuss it with yourself. After you think you know what the code does, you want to modify. You want to, right now, the game keeps going when the player has 0 lives. You want to fix it so the game stops when the player hits 0 or fewer lives. Take no more than 10 minutes to do this. All right, now, what did the code do? This is in general. Lines 1 through 13 declared and initialized the variables, set up the game board, and played some intro sound. Section 2, lines 16 through 30, checked for when the mouse moved over the lemons, sound is played. The score is increased, the lemon and the lime randomly move to new locations, score on the screen is updated. Lines 33 through 53, when the mouse moves over the line, sound is played. The score is decreased, lemon and lime randomly move to new locations, score on screen is updated, and if lives is less than 0, the game starts over. You needed to fix it. You needed to say if lives is less than or equal to 0, you want it to start over. So right here was the only little bit of change you needed to make to the code. Now, we're going to watch a couple more videos that expand what can be done with if statements. So go again to Unit 6, or to Unit 4, Lesson 6, and now you're going to be levels 4 and 5 are both videos. So you want to watch the video on level 4 and level 5, and then come back here. So this would be level 4 video, level 5 video. Pause now and go watch these 2 videos. All right, now let's go and try to do Lemon Squeeze Part 2. You're going to play the game at least once. Figure out what's changed since the last time and how the game works. Find the if-else-if statement that was added to the program. Sketch out or draw a flowchart for the if-else-if statement. And then modify the program so that the lemon becomes even smaller when the user has more than 15 points. Do this, take about 10 minutes. All right, now that you're back, here's the if-else-if code. Okay, and the thing that changed was as your score increased, the size of the lemon got smaller so that it got harder to catch. If you're not very good at this game, maybe you didn't notice that. Now, here is the code, and here is the flowchart. Score greater than 10, set the lemon size. Otherwise, if the score is greater than 5, set the lemon size. Otherwise, it was 140 by 140. Finally, you needed to modify it. Modifying it meant put an if statement in front of, okay, before, and change the if score greater than 10 to else if the score is greater than 10. So if score is greater than 15, you made it even smaller, okay? And then the rest of it flowed. So here's what should change. You did all the red, and actually if you look at this, I'm going to make this black just because this didn't actually change. You should have added in all this red, okay? The black was there, you just bumped it over a little. And here's how your flowchart would have changed. Now, at this point, you're going to go to level 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and to level 7. And you want to watch this video. Now we're going to do Lemon Squeeze Part 3. So keep on going. You're going to play the game at least once. Figure out what's changed since the last time and how the game works. Find the if-else-if statement that was added. Draw a flowchart for the if-else-if statement that was added. And then modify the app to add one more username and password. You'll need to edit both the code and the user interface. Okay? Warning, please use a fake password. It's never a good idea to use your real password in code like this. Take about 10 minutes to do this. Okay. So here, what's changed is you're adding in some login information. And you have if lemon head and password, and then you've got mellow yellow and the other. You can add another one, so that means that you added another username to the drop-down menu and you added another else if statement here, depending on what you made your new username and your password. Okay? So again, you just had to modify on screen that drop-down menu so that it had another name, and then added in another password. As a wrap-up, what is the difference between an if statement and an if-else statement and an if-else-if statement? How are they similar? Think about that. Jot down your thoughts in your notes. Pause the video while you do that. Okay, some key points, and these should be in your notes. These statements are all more the same than different. They all use Boolean expressions to decide whether to run certain pieces of code. If statements check if one Boolean expression is true. If it is, a piece of code is run. Otherwise, the code runs as normally. If-else statements add functionality that if the condition is false, it can still run some code before returning to running the program as normal. If-else-if statements can check more than one Boolean expression. They will only run the code for the first Boolean expression that evaluates to true. Now, order is important. If you look at this, checking multiple conditions with if-else-if. if temperature is greater than 100, I do this. And then I would jump all the way out of the code. Okay? Otherwise, if it was greater than 80, I would run this. It's hot. And then I would jump out of the code. Now, notice that order is important. If I checked if temperature greater than 70, okay, then the temperature, I would say that it's warm, but the temperature could also be 100. I would never get to 100, okay? So if I checked 70 first, I would say that it's warm if temperature is greater than 70, but I would never say that it's dangerously hot or very hot or hot, because the temperature is greater than 70, 100 is greater than 70, 80 is greater, 90 is greater. So notice that if I switch this around, my code would not work. That's a logic error. Those can be really hard to find because when you look at it, you might say, well, I'm checking everything, but it wouldn't work, right? Whoops, that's not what I wanted to click. And I'm going to pause this and just do some. Okay, I just added this little bit of pseudocode. It's not really the code, but it was quick to sort of explain what I'm talking about. Notice that if the temp is greater than 70, I'm going to display it's warm, and I'm going to jump out and start working down here. So let's say the temperature is 85. Then temperature is greater than 70. I'm going to say it's warm and jump out. But that means that I didn't say it was hot. What if the temperature is 101? Well, it should be saying it's very hot, but it's going to jump out. These two will never be reached because if the temperature is greater than 70, it will do this code and jump out. So I can never check just for greater than 80 or greater than 90. This is what I mean by order is important. You have to be very careful, and it's a logic. It is a logic error, something that's made common mistake, especially with new programmers. Okay, so don't fret if you make it, but I'm trying to warn you that it is a type of mistake that's made. Now, what happens next? Well, you're going to do a lot of conditionals practice and such in lesson 7 and even in lesson 8 because you got conditionals practice and conditionals make. That's all there is for this video.